Vernomatic Productions.
Well, you just hit the nail on the head. We're older, and as most of us older people, I'm sure you're included, the hangovers last and are way more painful than they were when we were in our 20s, you know?
Are you ready?
Live from the Metal Mayhem Studios in Rochester, New York.
We are gold.
And heard around the world by metalheads just like you. This is Metal Mayhem ROC.
Heavy metal music.
Your weekly dose of metal music, interviews, album reviews, news, and more. Want to be part of the show? Send us a message through our website, metalmayhemroc.com, or hit us up on Facebook and Twitter. Search Metal Mayhem ROC, a proud member of the Pantheon podcast team.
It's getting nice and heavy.
Now, welcome our hosts, John the Vernomatic Verno, and direct from New Jersey, Metal Walt.
Good evening, everybody. Hope everyone's doing well, staying healthy, and enjoying the 4th of July weekend. Well, tonight, Metal Walt sits down with Tesla co-founder and lead guitarist Frank Hannon. They discuss Tesla's new album, Homage, the summer tour with Mötley Crüe and Extreme, and 40 years since the release of Tesla's debut album, Mechanical Resonance. Find out if Elon Musk ever hooked the band up with Teslas of their own. Discover which album Frank still considers Tesla's finest work, and what finally convinced him that the rock and roll lifestyle of drinking and drugging just wasn't worth it anymore. Also find out why he enjoys paying it forward by mentoring up-and-coming bands. Tons of cool anecdotes. Frank's a great guy, and our boy Metal Walt's in his own. It's a good one. Have a great 4th of July weekend, everybody. I'm the Vernomatic, and this is Metal Mayhem ROC.
So, Frank, welcome to Metal Mayhem ROC. It's great to have you on.
Metal Mayhem. It's great to be here, man.
Well, listen, Frank, we got a lot to cover today, but before we talk music, I always had to ask you something. I've been following Tesla from back in 86, 87, but you guys had the name before Elon Musk and the car company came along. Do you ever get any weird comments or any mix-ups that still go on that confuse you guys with these guys?
Well, you know, because it's a car, there's not a lot of confusion, but we do get asked the question a lot. And the one question we get asked is, have they given us any free cars? And the answer to that is absolutely no, they have not. But no, you know, we named ourselves Tesla after Nikola Tesla, the greatest electrical inventor of all time. And at the time when we heard about Nikola Tesla, we had never heard of him in high school or history books or anything. So it was fascinating to us, the level of contributions that he made to the world with electricity and how crazy they thought his ideas were, but they were so far ahead of his time. And we thought that was a really cool concept. And obviously Elon Musk and the Tesla car company felt the same way. So they named their car company after him. But there's not really any confusion because we've been around a little bit longer than they have.
That's right. You guys get bragging rights. Maybe at some point you can send them a royalty bill. But
hey, you know, it's actually brought more awareness to the name Tesla. I mean, you know, we're driving down the highway and I see little electric pumps that say Tesla on them. You know, I'm like, whoa, hey, there's our band name.
you know, so my friend. Yep.
Yeah, but really our namesake Nikola Tesla was such a important figure that none of us had ever heard of before. That was what was fascinating to us, and that's why we kind of wrote some songs about it, like Edison's Medicine, and you know, we were introduced to Nikola Tesla through a book called Man Out of Time that our manager had in the studio while we were recording, and the photos and the stories. It was such a fascinating thing. He was a fascinating guy.
Absolutely. So listen, you're about to drop a new album called Homage. But you know what? I've listened to this one. It's a great album, but I don't see this one as your traditional covers album. The best way I can kind of describe it is like, these are good down-home songs, like the songs I grew up with sitting in the back of my parents' car or an AM radio, the clock radios, or going like to the beach in Jersey. So, but what's interesting is these are songs written by some of the greatest songwriters and performers of all time, but it's songs with soul, heart, melody, real messages behind them. And I think of a line that was in the press notes that said, this was really a thank you note written in sound. So when you hear that phrase, does that really capture what you guys were trying to accomplish with this new album?
Well, yeah, the title Homage and the way you said it, Homage. I've heard it pronounced so many different ways. It's such a funny word, when Brian Wheat thought of it, and it's such a cool word. It can be said in so many different ways. Homage, omaggio. I did an Italian interview the other day, and they said omaggio. So it's a cool word, and that concept, that word is the concept. It's an homage to singers, and like you said, you may have heard these songs in your parents' car going on the way to the beach or something, because a lot of them are from previous generations, and we're paying homage to the greats from the late 50s and the 60s, James Brown, Etta James. And the word itself, homage, sums it up as a concept to paying homage to great vocalists. So that's why we're covering Queen, with Freddie Mercury being obviously one of the greatest vocalists. Elvis Presley is on there, James Brown. Even Hank Williams Sr. there's a song on there that we did. So it's an homage to great singers. And honestly, it's an homage to our singer, Jeff Keith, who, is in his late 60s and has always had a natural ability to just be diverse and sing soulful songs.
Mm-hmm. So how did this collection of songs come together? Was this like a band democracy? Was it you and Brian and Jeff? Was it mainly Jeff's driven? Like who drove this whole selection?
Well, Brian Wheat really drove this particular project. And he and I will brainstorm about songs, and we would make lists, and we would get together backstage, in the dressing room before the show, and we would listen to different singers. And it started off with the idea of Spread Your Wings. Jeff Keith and Brian Wheat have been talking about that Queen song for a long time. I'm surprised it never ended up on Reel to Reel or one of our other covers albums that we did, because that song's been being mentioned. But once the concept of soulful singers came into play for this homage, Brian and I would brainstorm and make a list, and John Fogerty ended up on that list, and Bob Seger even ended up on that list, because to me, Bob Seger is one of the greatest soulful singers there is in rock and roll. And so we made a list, and we would present it to Jeff. And then, if Jeff gravitated towards it, and like a magnet, if he stuck to an idea, then we would pursue it. So, like, speaking of Bob Seger, I think maybe I had suggested Against the Wind as the song. But then when I suggested that to Jeff, he suggested Night Moves, and it was a no-brainer because Night Moves is so great. And so that's how it works. The three of us, Brian Wheat, myself, and Jeff Keith, will brainstorm.
This, Frank, this is like an album. Like if you were to get in a car, go on a road trip from Jersey to California, you're going through Route 66, you'll be appreciating this because it's like the history of rock. I mean, and you hit the nail on the head, but going back to the Queen selection, I mean, this is not an obvious choice of a song like that you might cover. It's not one of the big hits, but it's one of those underrated, underappreciated Queen songs. So why that one in particular?
Well, I would imagine, and I'm pretty sure that it's the lyrics. The lyrics about a young guy, Sammy. Sammy was low watching the show. Almost like a jukebox hero story of a kid who's got a job sweeping floors, and he wants to be on stage. And so those lyrics, I believe, really touched our singer, Jeff. And Jeff, our singer, is really about the lyrics. If you listen to our Tesla original songs, by the way, there's an original song on this album as well we'll talk about.
Yes, it is.
The lyrics are always about hope and being lifted up, and like love song, love will, it's, you think that it's over, but don't you worry, pretty darling. I know love will come back around kind of vibe. And so Spread Your Wings is like that, don't you worry, Sammy, you're going to spread your wings. It's kind of those type of messages that we've always tried to put in our own songs, and Jeff really gravitates towards those.
Sure. You know, for Frank, for you, and for Dave, especially the guitarist, like stepping into these songs, let's say, you know, you got to interpret Brian May, John Fogerty, the Skinner guys, and the list goes on and on and on. How do you approach that sort of, how do you approach those challenges when you want to reinterpret these songs?
Well, that's one of the beautiful things about learning covers. And I had to learn a lot of these songs in detail because we like to pay very respectful to the original versions, but also make them our own. And so, for example, on the Leonard Skinner song, you know, Ed King plays this amazing slide guitar, but I don't play it note for note. I play slide in the tradition of what he did, but I add my own twist to it, but still being respectful to the original version, especially when an original version is so great already as it is, you know. But, you know, I always like to say that learning is a great thing. And I learned a lot making this record. I had to learn myself. My job, if you read the credits, was pre-production. And I had to learn all these songs and put them together on a map and learn the chord changes and the parts. And you know, that's the beautiful thing about guitar is you can keep on learning new things by diving into really old music.
Sure. I mean, speaking of old songs, I think the James Brown classic, I Feel Good. I mean, everybody knows that song, but I didn't read the track list. I kind of put it on in my car and then just going to work, and I'm like, wow, here comes this one. I mean, that to me was like a fun one, but maybe a little bit outside the box for Tesla. Like, tell me about that one.
Yeah. And, you know, we all call it I Feel Good, but I think the name of it is actually I Got You, I think. I have to look at the credits. So
you in parentheses, I Feel Good. Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, that one came about very quickly. And again, it was one that I was a little bit intimidated by at first because, again, James Brown and the band, the feel. Those bands recorded those songs with such feeling. You know, there was no click tracks or Pro Tools or anything going on back then. They were just in there jamming. And so I learned that jam in my hotel room in Las Vegas. We were doing a residency at the House of Blues. And Jeff Keith came over to my hotel room and we listened to it, and I recorded it on the laptop and put it together. And I tell you, man, Jeff Keith is so much fun to record. I've been recording Jeff Keith's vocals since before the first album. Back in 1984, he would come over to my house, and I had a little 4-track recorder and a microphone, and we would make demos, and he can just belt it out so naturally. And literally, once I got the bed for the James Brown I Got You, I Feel Good song recorded, I set the microphone up in my hotel room, and he sang it. And that was it. And that's what you're hearing on the album.
Wow, that's awesome. That's incredible. Good story. So you did mention there is one piece of new music on the album that opens the album. Tell us about that one.
Well, we have done so many tribute covers albums over the years, and we didn't want to do one that was missing a Tesla song because we want people to know that we are still writing songs. I mean, we have released, a bunch of singles over the past 5 years. We released a song called All About Love. We released another one called Time to Rock, which was a rocker. We released another song called Cold Blue Steel, which was another rocker. So, we're still writing songs. It's just we do them one at a time. And we wanted to put a new original song on this album. And again, Brian Wheat, hats off to him, man. He was really inspired at this time, and he just started putting together some chords, and Jeff heard it and liked it, and they presented it to me, and then I made a few little tweaks and things in there, and we put it together so naturally. It's called Never Alone. And again, it's a song of hope. It's a positive message lyrically about not ever feeling alone, and so that's the song Never Alone. It's really a Tesla classic.
Certainly is. So the album drops on July 17th, which is also the day the tour kicks off. So you guys are heading out on a major summer tour with Mötley Crüe and Extreme. I'll be seeing you guys at the PNC Bank Art Center in New Jersey, which ironically is the same venue where I saw you open up for Poison way back in, I think it was June of 1989. So maybe talk a little bit about this tour, your brother's on the road, and what's a major Shed tour like for you guys now in 2026 versus back then?
Well, even back then and now, it still feels like home to us. Tesla's always been a live, high energy band that has opened for so many artists. I mean, we've opened, like you said, you mentioned Poison, Def Leppard, David Lee Roth, Alice Cooper, Eddie Money. I mean, heck, we even opened for Carlos Santana once at an animal rescue show.
Cool.
We even had the opportunity to try to open for Metallica a few times. New Year's Eve at the Tokyo Dome. So we've always been a support band that really brings a lot of energy to the show. And they've got us sandwiched between Extreme and Mötley Crüe on this tour, which is like right in the middle. So we're preparing for it. We're getting together this week for a rehearsal. We've got our visuals, our video screens, so when we're doing Modern Day Cowboy, you see the cowboys up there, bang, bang, shooting them up. So we're putting a show together for it, and we're going to be at home in these sheds, man. And speaking of home, we opened for Mötley Crüe. Out of all those artists I mentioned, on the Dr. Feelgood tour, we opened for Mötley Crüe a bunch, and it was actually on that tour that we took a break and recorded our 5-man acoustical jam album at a club. When Mötley Crüe had a night off, we went and played at a club and recorded it. So there's a lot of history there.
Was that planned? Was that show planned, or was it like, hey, we got a night off, let's just go do something different?
It was planned, but very much not in advance. It was planned pretty spontaneously. Usually shows are planned months ahead of a time. That particular run of dates was literally like weeks ahead of time. We just planned it really quick. Based on the response that we were getting, playing acoustic at radio stations and playing acoustic guitars, period. A lot of people just felt that we were an acoustic. We had the ability to play shows acoustically, which we did. We had played a couple on the West Coast, and they went over really well. So our manager put that together really quickly, and it turned out to be one of our best moments.
Sure. I mean, of course, you couldn't escape Signs. That was on MTV, the radio. But again, I remember when you guys kind of came back in the late 90s, early 2000s. I caught you at Irving Plaza in 2002, and it was on the second acoustic tour. It's one of my favorite, most memorable Tesla shows because I got a chance to see that stuff live. And on top of that, you were bringing different covers in than you recorded on the 5-man acoustical jam. So I always appreciated that softer side of Tesla too.
Well, hey, thanks a lot, man. I'm very happy that Tesla has the ability to be dynamic. That's the word. We're not just on 10, loud and noisy the whole time. We do have a musical sense to being dynamic in our and most of our favorite bands were like that. Led Zeppelin. I mean, Led Zeppelin, the biggest heavy metal band, right? But listen to Stairway to Heaven or Rain Song or Going to California, they had that element as well. So those are our influences. And like the Rolling Stones, for example, they do Wild Horses or Angie or, playing acoustic guitar. We didn't invent it, but we brought it back in that era.
Sure. Frank, thinking about it, like, out of the sex, drugs, and rock and roll period or whatever, what is life like for Tesla now on the road? Is like, what do you do to stay healthy, mentally, physically? What's your routine like now that you guys are older?
Well, you just hit the nail on the head. We're older. And as most of us older people, I'm sure you're included, the hangovers last and are way more painful than they were when we were in our 20s, So, you pay the price, man, and you learn from it, and you don't want to feel that way anymore. And so that's a big motivation is we want to feel good. And when you get older, you decide, that you wise up and you just, stay off the booze and the drugs, because it's just too much of a headache, literally,
Sure.
And as a group, as a team, we all live on the same bus, and we all have learned how to get along and give each other space in such tight quarters. I mean, it's not easy. I'll tell you that right now. It's not easy living on a bus with 12 people.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's going to be a big summer tour. I think it's going to be a great one. I look forward to it. It was interesting in looking at the notes to prepare for our discussion. It didn't occur to me that 2026 is also the 40th anniversary of Mechanical Resonance. And Frank, I was thinking back, I was 16 then. I remember seeing Modern Day Cowboy on MTV. And you know what? For me, what always struck me that was, Tesla never really fit into that hair metal category. I think of bands like you guys, Badlands, maybe Blue Murder. There was Substance. These were like blues and roots influences, So did you ever think that you guys maybe were misrepresented a little bit back then?
Well, that was a crazy era, man, the 80s, and MTV really had taken off. And so visuals were very important. I mean, at the time in that era. And so it became very competitive with visuals. I mean, the bands just got more and more extreme. We didn't really feel good about, going as crazy as that. But I don't know if we were misrepresented. The fact is our band had some heavy metal elements in it, and we also had the acoustic elements. But the main thing was songwriting. And luckily we were coached early on by Ronnie Montrose and people very early, because like you said, you were 16, I was just 19 and 18 when I recorded that record. So, very young, but we had some mentors, and they told us always to try to write the best songs that have depth to them. And I think that's what stuck with us and helped us stick through the all the glam and the glitz and all of that. Was we put a lot of work into writing songs like Changes or Modern Day Cowboy or Hang Tough or Love Song or The Way It Is or What You Give, but at the time, there was so much competition in the visual glam of everything. So we didn't quite, fit into all of that, but I don't think we're ever mislabeled. I mean, we've been called the underdogs, and we are and have always been the underdogs, underrated. It's better than being overrated, right?
No.
I'm very happy with everything, the way it's all turned out.
Sure. I mean, again, if you think back, just for your own personal reflections, how do you feel about Mechanical Resonance now? What do you think back in time? What do you hear now?
Man, it's my favorite Tesla album for those reasons. For me personally, because I was so young. What'd you say?
Yeah, no, you're good.
Yeah, I was so young when writing those songs, and those songs with the band, we co-wrote them all together, and Mechanical Resonance, that album, our first album, just is very special to me because I was such a youngster when I wrote and recorded those songs with the guys, and I had no idea at the time the magnitude of what we were doing. We went to New York, and we lived at Bearsville Studio, which was such a beautiful place. We were there for 3 months. We worked nonstop in a barn. We lived in a barn with spiders that were like that big. I mean, I had never seen a wolf spider that big until I was in upstate New York in the woods. And I'd wake up and there'd be a humongous spider, and then they'd wake me up. Hey, we got to go to the studio, and just memories of everything that I personally learned as a youngster being in that situation, looking back. And you said the word reflections. I've been doing a lot of reflection on all of it recently, and it's crazy when you reflect on things that you went through that you didn't realize were happening at the time. One step kept leading to another. And but my fondest memory of Mechanical Resonance is we had been playing all those songs in the bars and the clubs, but then when Steve Thompson and Michael Barbiero took us up to that Bearsville studio, and we were there living there and working on on those songs in the barn. And then the studio itself was just humongous. And I think Todd Rundgren had built it or something. It just sounded so good. I had never heard such a humongous sound like that. And if you listen to that first album, the sound of it is so open and airy,
Sure.
And we were trying to compete with a lot of the other sounds of the time, that were overproduced, like double and triple tracking the guitars. We didn't do that. We just kept it real stripped down. And it sounds really organic and mixed with those songs that we wrote. And it's my favorite Tesla album.
Sure. Thinking back to then, Frank, my first Tesla show was 1987 at Meadowlands Arena in New Jersey, opening for Def Leppard. And this was early hysteria period. I remember the arena was half empty. But the funny part was I didn't have any money then. We just bought concert tickets. And I was in the second to last row of the upper tier. And my buddy got sick and he threw up all over our seats. He puked. And I had to watch the Tesla show from the aisle. But what do you remember from that early tour, let's say before Tesla really exploded?
Wow, that's a funny story, man. You said the tickets were half full. Yeah, the Hysteria tour, it got off to a slow start. And we ended up touring with Def Leppard on that for a year and a half almost, man. It was crazy. We went to Europe. And that was the first tour that was ever in the round, in the middle of the arena. So the stage was set up in the center. So it was a whole new experience. We had played the Meadowlands once before with David Lee Roth in January of that year. And it was a traditional setup with the stage on the side. So it was very different to be in the round in the middle of the arena. And we've had a lot of great shows at the Meadowlands. And that area, the whole East Coast, has always been very good to Tesla. We paid our dues there, opening for Def Leppard, and just had some great memories there.
A year or so ago, I had Dino from Red Voodoo on to promote their album. Great young band. And he really paid his respects to you. You guys really helped him get off the ground. You specifically, you were a big mentor to him. And then, of course, your late father-in-law was the late, great Dickie Betts. So I would say, what kind of wisdom in a fatherly role have you kind of given and also received from, let's say, those guys?
Yeah, well, you hit the nail on the head, with young artists like Red Voodoo or JT Lux, and many other local bands, and not even local. There was a couple other groups around the country that I have discovered and tried to help and mentor and just pass on some coaching. It's a lot of fun, it's kind of like being a coach of a little league team or something. And I had mentioned Ronnie Montrose to you earlier. He did that for us when we were kids, and it really helped us to learn, and music and being in a band and the business and learning how to write songs, learning how to make demo tapes. There's so much to it that you have to learn. So it was rewarding doing that and coaching these young kids that have a lot of talent. It's a lot of fun from a producer standpoint when you have a studio. I've always been the guy that love to have a recording studio, and setting up a microphone and finding a singer that can just sing naturally and there's a spark in the room when that happens. And I've done it with a lot of different undiscovered musicians, and it's rewarding. And yes, people have done that for us, and so it's kind of like paying it forward and also having fun with that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, Frank, 40 years after Mechanical Resonance, a new album arriving this summer and a major U.S. tour, another chapter of Tesla's being written. This was an awesome conversation, and I wish you the best of luck with the album, with the tour. Hopefully we see you out there, and have a great summer.
Hey, come see me and tap me on the shoulder. Go, hey, it's me, Lance, man. Remember me at the PNC, right?
Yes. Well, I'll try to make it happen. Let's try to take it further. Let's have a beer in the parking lot. I'll see if I can get on the list.
All right. Yeah, do that, man. Call the publicist. And if that doesn't work out, get a hold of me. I'll give you my email after the show's done here.
All right, sounds good. So for Frank Hannon of Tesla, I'm Metal Walt, and this is Metal Mayhem ROC.
Thanks for watching Metal Mayhem ROC. Subscribe and check out another interview right here.